Good morning and welcome to this weekly market update. Today is the 15th of May. Charts we're going to go through today are Euro dollar, cable, dollar yen, dollar Swiss and gold. Just to give some sort of weekly outlook, won't be making any trade calls or recommendations. This will basically just be some pure technical analysis, trying to give some sort of weekly outlook. Be looking at the daily charts and kind of 4-hour charts, so maybe the 1-hour charts as well. For any new followers, we have 3 moving averages on these charts. The red one is 55 simple, purple is 100 simple, and the gold line there is a 200 simple moving average. Okay, let's have a look at euro dollar. This is the daily chart. We've been speaking about this for some time, this kind of week, this recent fib move on the daily. We were talking about this nice 50 back area, which was holding for quite some time. And you can now see that this has now been broken quite significantly. We're having a lot of news on the wires out of Greece with the French elections as well, which pulled the price down. But in terms of the technical perspective, we had so that 50% level was holding very, very nicely. But the interesting thing was that when because we had a big gap down around this area here, and the key thing was, we spoke about it because we did the webinar I think last week on the Tuesday. And you can see on this daily chart that we came up, we tested it, and it then acted as a solid resistance zone. So a classic example of previous support acting as new resistance, and you can see we could not get a daily candlestick close above that level, and we're now selling off. So the level we're now looking at is this around the 78.6 area, which we haven't quite tested to the pip, but it's just missed it. It's just missed it quite shy by a few sort of pips, and it's around that 128 level. So that's going to be a big option barrier as well. And you can already see that we're starting to get some sort of bounce around this 128 level. That's the 78.6 Fibonacci retracement level. So it looks like that we're starting to get some sort of support. I mean, it could just be a weak bounce, and you're going to get some people selling into any euro strength. So we may not bounce up and get above the big sort of 50% level that we're looking at, or even test the 100-day. I mean, that's the kind of resistance we'll be looking out for if we've got any sort of bounce. The weekly's starting to look a bit more bullish now, and also you've got to remember we do have on this weekly chart a nice sort of trendline support, so keep that in mind as well. We're just shy of it at the minute. So, but I think in terms of the technicals, it is looking very, very heavy, but we are starting to get some sort of support already at this 78.6 fib level. In terms of the 4-hour, is it any more interesting? Not really. I mean, if people are going to be selling into the rallies, then you're going to get them most probably selling out this kind of trendline resistance here. So keep that on your charts as well. You can either bring the trendline in, so it's kind of near testing at the minute, or you can just play at the highs there, which is probably the safer bet. But also another key thing to bear in mind is that we have 2 gaps which still are unfilled. Last week after the elections, we had a big gap over here, and on the recent Sunday Open, we also had another gap there. So, and gaps do normally fill, especially on euro dollar. They tend to fill very, very well. So you have to keep that in mind. And my personal bias is still towards the upside in terms of technicals. But I would say it's all about this kind of trendline resistance. And we do have this is the 1-hour chart, I think. Yeah, the 1-hour chart. And we've got this 55 EMA here as well, which is kind of coinciding with the trendline resistance. So quite technical on euro. But for me, in terms of this week, it's all about this trendline resistance. What happens around this level, around this kind of area, and you have to keep in mind that the gaps still have to be filled. So it's going to be a very interesting weekend. There's going to be a lot of news still out on the wires. We'll go through the forex calendar, but in terms of Greece, a lot of people think that Greece are going to leave the euro, and what's that going to do? What sort of effect is that going to have on euro dollar? All I do know is that it will most probably be very, very volatile if they do leave. But which way it will go? I mean, some people say that will be good for the euro because they're finally out and all the mess can start to get resolved. But then again, there's a lot of debt that will need to be repaid, and a lot of banks have to kind of write off that debt. So very, very interesting week on the euro. You have to keep that. But in terms of weekly perspective, I would literally just play my chart as that. I'd have the 1 hour trend line resistance. You got the big fib level on the daily, and you got these two gaps to kind of keep in mind as well. And just generally keep longer term perspective in mind. Okay, let's have a look at cable. This is the daily chart on cable. I won't talk about the weekly because everyone knows what's happening in terms of the weekly. In terms of cable, for me, really, it's all about this kind of trend line support here. Still holding very, very nicely. You can kind of draw, if you want to, you can draw the top of the kind of channel, I suppose. In terms of the moving averages, we're a long way away from them. The first one is the 55 day moving average. So if we do get some sort of, I mean, it's continuing to sell off at the top of this channel. A lot of people are looking at the 50% fib. We got a nice bounce off as well. You can see that clear on the 4 hour chart. We had a nice sort of reaction at this 50% Fibonacci retracement level at the 160.60 level. So that's starting to bounce up. It is kind of looking a little bit toppy in terms of the candlestick formations. As you can see, we're kind of getting some wicks around this area here, and we have a similar sort of wick up here. I mean, the current candle's looking quite bearish indeed. It is looking a little bit heavy. It's struggling to get some sort of big bounce off of this level. I mean, maybe a lot of people think that are waiting to buy at this trendline support. So I mean, it is a very nice, very technical trendline support. Looks like it wants to come down and test it. So maybe a better Fibonacci retracement opportunity will be at this 61.8% if we do get here, or it could just trickle down around here and then come at the 50% and the trendline support. So we could get a nice sort of confluence area there. Okay, let's have a look at dollar yen. What do we have on dollar yen in terms of the daily? In terms of a recent fib move, we'll have that low there to the high. Not very technical in terms of the fib, although we are actually, no, it's fairly technical. As you can see, we've started to get a little bounce up, and we've already bounced off of the 50% in terms of a resistance area. So previous support now acting as resistance. But the main thing here is this 100-day moving average holding quite nicely so far. So a lot of people will be buying off of that 100-day moving average, I would suspect. But not a massively interesting chart, really. Not massively technical in terms of that recent fib move. I just thought it would be a bit more technical. Maybe it wants to come down and test this 61.8, or maybe it wants to come down and test this 200-day. But so far, it's bouncing off the 100-day moving average. So you have to say that the bias is towards the upside on dollar yen. Dollar Swiss. I haven't looked at dollar Swiss in a while, mainly because it hasn't really been moving too much. We did have this nice trendline support there, which is holding very, very well, and you can also see that this key resistance zone is now being broken, and that was at the pretty much the 93 handle. So we're now above that level, key level. I mean, the reason we had the reason I've just drawn that level on the chart is because you can see we had a nice reaction over here. Nice bounce there, very nice bounce there, and we're now above it. So the odds are that we're going to test the highs around here on dollar Swiss. In terms of a fib, you could have the recent, well, the kind of main swing fib here on the daily, and we're kind of around that level now. So it's kind of already blasted through that already. So dollar Swiss is looking very, very bullish indeed. But in terms of the weekly, it is starting to, I mean, the weekly looks like it is reacting much better. So that's 61.8. And as you can see around here to the left, we did have a very nice reaction for the 61.8, so I would not be surprised if we came down this week. So if we had I mean, the dollar Swiss has been quite interesting recently because it's been pretty much doing the exact opposite of euro dollar. It's been respecting the Fibonacci levels quite well. And if you look at a dollar Swiss chart and the euro dollar chart, especially if you look at intraday chart, they've been doing virtually the complete opposite. So I would not be surprised if we'd had a good reaction off of that weekly, off of that 61.8 fib at the 93.40 level. So that's the key level for me in terms of dollar Swiss. And you also have to remember that there's gaps to fill as well, very similar to euro dollar. We have the two gaps, one there and one there, that have still got to fill. So you have to say that those are towards the downside for dollar Swiss, purely because those gaps haven't filled, and also that big fib level. So, and gaps do tend to fill, so keep that in mind. And yeah, it should be an interesting week for dollar Swiss. Okay, that's the forex done. Let's have a look at our favourite commodity, gold. Gold's starting to sell off quite dramatically now, and finally we have broken below this trendline support on gold. So that's a key. I mean, the first time we've had a break since, well, this trendline's been holding since 2008. So key break there on gold. No matter literally every video we've done, we've always had this on the chart to keep some sort of perspective on gold. Looks like we're starting to have some sort of retracement now on gold, which has been due for some time, I must say. The key level for me on gold on this weekly chart is the 100-week moving average, which stands at around 15.13. Very interesting to see what happens at that level. In terms of the daily chart, what sort of levels do we have? The main level there would be that kind of 15.44 level. We haven't had a daily candlestick close for that in a while. That's the key level for me on the gold chart. Is that a fib level out of interest? I'm just going to draw. Let's say if we draw from the low on this chart to the high. No, it's not a fib level. I was just testing that out of interest. I swear it was previously. Yeah, it is previously. From that recent dip there, it's the 61.8% level. So that's key fib that I would be to keep some sort of perspective on gold. That would be the fib that I'd have on my charts. You can see it's been reacting so well. If you look to the left of your charts, we've had some great support off of that level once around here, and if you look to the right of that, you can see the nice bounce around here. So key level that for me. Only thing I'd really be interested in gold is that 15.42. Very good buy zone in my opinion. A lot of people will be buying, but also to keep in mind that 100-week moving average on gold. Would not be surprised if it came down and tested it either. So if we're going to get a break of that 61.8, then I'll be looking for that that 100-week moving average. But in my opinion, I think we may get a bounce off of this 61.8 level. Okay, that's all for the charts. Let's have a look at the forex calendar this week. Very quiet day yesterday. What have we already had out today at 7 AM with the German preliminary GDP numbers? A nice increase of 0.5% there versus the forecast 0.1%. Previously was minus 0.2%. So that's as you can already see, it's starting to lift the euro. With the French non-farm payrolls, 0.1% increase there. We also have the Italian preliminary GDP at 9 PM. In terms of the main sort of headline, the main headline news out today at the Eurozone is this German ZEW economic sentiment. Forecast is 19.1. They're expecting a decrease from the previous 23.4. Out of the US at 1:30, the core CPI numbers. We have core retail sales and the retail sales numbers. The CPI is expected to stay the same there, 0.2%. Out on Wednesday with out of the UK at 9:30, the UK claimant count change, forecast at 4.9 thousand, previously was 3.6 thousand, and what follows is the UK unemployment rate. That's expected to stay the same at 8.3%. 10:30 AM we have BOE Governor Mervyn King speaking, and the inflation reports. That'll be very, very interesting for cable. See what sort of reaction we have out of there. 1/30 of the US building permits forecasted at 0.73 million, previously 0.75 million. And at 7 PM we have the FOMC meeting minutes, so that'll be a key thing to look out for, to see how that reacts with euro dollar. On Thursday we have the US weekly jobless claims forecasted at 370,000, previously was 367,000. At 3 PM we have the US fully fed manufacturing index forecasted for an increase at 10.6, previously was 8.5. And on Friday we have a UK bond auction. Now we have German PPI. Main news, if any of you trade the loonie, we have core CPI with the CPI data out. Core CPI is expected to stay the same at 0.3%, and the normal CPI month on month expected a slight decrease at 0.3%. And also all day we have the G8 meetings, and on Saturday as well. So we may get a gap on Sunday evening. But yeah, I mean, not a huge amount of data, but just a fairly standard week really in terms of economic data. Make sure you keep those technicals on your charts. Hope you enjoyed that video, and I'll see you next Monday. Have a great week trading. Thanks.